I don't talk a lot about sound design on this channel, but I thought now was a good time to bring up this specific topic. I want you to think about going to a restaurant and you're eating lunch or dinner, maybe you're with friends, and maybe the restaurant isn't super busy. There's only a few tables kind of here and there scattered, and there's not a lot of activity, there's not a lot of hustle and bustle. And if that restaurant isn't playing music or some kind of ambient noise, it's going to feel really dead. It's going to feel lifeless. It's going to feel hollow. It's going to feel empty. If the restaurant had a lot more people there's a lot more customers, there might be more clanking of plates, more people chattering, there might be kind of like a hum in the air. And depending on the acoustics of the room, it can actually be overwhelming. Depending on how the restaurant's designed, a lot of people talking can actually kind of reverberate the space and make it really too loud, where you only almost have to scream just to talk to the people across from you. But ideally, a restaurant would have the normal amount of kind of hustle and bustle of people clanking plates, chewing on food, talking amongst each other. But then they've usually got some kind of music to set a theme, to set kind of like an ambient tone, so that if the guest list is down and there's not as many people there, it still doesn't feel awkward and like dead and silent in the restaurant. The reason I bring this up is that when you're doing any kind of video project, you usually have some kind of sound. Sound is half of the picture. You can show a lot of cool visuals, but it's really helpful if you've got sound and sound design with it. And what can happen frequently is that if you've got dialogue-based content, you'll probably go in there and you'll do some kind of noise reduction. You'll take out the noise so that it sounds its absolute best. Maybe there was an AC going or a weird electrical hum. You take that sound out, and then all that's left is this very clean, very stark audio track without any ambient sound. And what you want to do in that situation is you actually want to add some ambient sound back in. You almost want to add room tone or some kind of noise. If it's a space that makes sense that it would have a specific noise, like an office, maybe it's like telephones, maybe it's a hospital, so there's like monitors bleeping in the background. Maybe there's it just depends on the environment. But let's say it's just a house. You still want to add some ambient sound, just a consistent room tone back in, because the stuff you filter out is the stuff that you don't have control over. So you take the bad stuff out, but then at maybe a lower volume, you can filter stuff back in, or maybe it's a more pleasing room tone that you've pulled from an online library, or you've recorded yourself in another room, just the natural sound of the space. Filter that back in so that your audio track doesn't seem lifeless and dead. If you watch any movie, TV show, you'll notice they do a lot with the sound. Any kind of sound effects that you can incorporate, absolutely put those in. Don't have them like overwhelming and cheesy, but more often than not with sound, the more subtle you are, the better the effect is. So footsteps, papers rustling, a page turning, whatever those sound design elements are that you can incorporate back in, that makes the piece feel a lot fuller and a lot more whole. But don't forget that ambient room tone, because sometimes there aren't sound effects, there aren't specific things that you can actually add in to make it sound full. And maybe you don't want to add a music track because maybe for whatever reason it doesn't call for music. This is a scene where it's pure dialogue. All that's happening is someone talking, much like I am right now. And I actually don't filter out the noise in this room because I try and keep it pretty quiet and pretty dead. I actually could put some acoustic paneling up, but maybe that's a project for another day. But in any case, if someone's just talking, you still want some of that natural room tone, so it doesn't sound hollow and lifeless and dead like that restaurant. When it's too quiet, it's almost like an eerie feeling. Even any movie where there's in space, it's very rare that there's actually no sound in the movie or in the theater, because it's just very discomforting. And maybe that if that's the effect you want to go for, you can absolutely use sound design and the lack of sound to do that. But on the flip side, don't just filter out your noise and think that you're done, considering you took something out and now you got to kind of put something back in. So just keep that in mind next time you're working on sound for whatever the project is. Look at the sound effects. Obviously, that's number one. That's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But also don't forget about putting some kind of room tone or ambient noise back into the piece if you're filtering stuff out.